First-person shooters are one of the most played categories every single year. With hundreds of thousands of new players playing every single day, this made me wonder what current FPS game is the best for new players. Well, since FPS is my day-to-day genre of choice, I've played my fair share of shooters enough to say I have a good standing on what's considered an easier game to get into. Now that my input for this video has a little bit of validation, let me explain how I'm going to choose what to play. Well, first of all, obviously I'm going to have to be playing a first-person shooter, but I'm also going to slide in some regular shooters, which is basically the same thing. Secondly, the game has to be free. And last of all, the game has to be popular, which I'll base it off of Steam charts and Twitch analytics. After scavenging the internet, I chose 10 FPS games that fit the criteria. I'm gonna play them in their current state and rate them based off of what game is best for new players. With all that being said, what better game to start off than Valorant?
I've been playing Valorant since the release, and till this day it still holds its own. Sadly, it's not in its best state like it was back in 2022, but that doesn't mean the game doesn't have a lot to offer. If you're a new player in 2026 deciding, maybe I should start with Valorant, first off, bold, but let me prepare you for what you should expect. Well, of course, Valorant has its base set of guns, but unlike COD or Fortnite, the weapons you choose vastly varies on what scenario you're in. Like close range, you might want to pick a Stinger because of fast fire rate, or maybe even a Bucky for a quick pick. Or mid range, you could use a Vandal or a Phantom depending on the places you decide to push or hold, or even an Operator for far range shots. This is just the basics for the guns. Not only do you have to think about what to use, at the start you're given a choice on what role you want to play. There are 4 different main roles, all with different play styles. If you like to play aggressive, be the first person to take fights and create space for your team to entry, then Duelist might be the role for you. But on the other hand, if you're a defensive player that likes to gather information, lock down sites, and hold flanks, then you might consider playing Sentinel. If you're more of a team player, Controller might be the best pick for you, due to the util like smokes that blocks enemies' lines of sight, or walls that could help your team safely enter. And lastly, Initiator is known for outplaying their opponents with util like flashes, stuns, and scans. Now I'm talking a lot about util, which if you're new, you're probably thinking I'm speaking gibberish, but the utility is the main reason Valorant shines from its competitors, and honestly, just FPSs in general. Like I was saying, all the 4 different types of roles have different sets of utility, ranging from stuns, flashes, smokes, mobility, and many more. Not only do you have to worry about that, but each character is given their own ultimate, and with all these factors, it can make Valorant not only a very competitive game, but honestly just a pain to learn everything needed to play at the fullest potential. So yeah, that's a lot to think about already, but luckily Valorant accommodates for new players by offering simple game modes like Swift Play, a quicker competitive so you can get your ass whooped by multiple people in an hour rather than 5 in a normal game. They also offer 2v2 so you can prove to yourself that your team's the problem and not you and your duo, or maybe play some Escalation, which is basically just team deathmatch. And honestly, I'm not even gonna bother to list the rest because I think by now you can tell they don't really ease the game in for new players. They throw you into the deep end, and well, if you can swim, then keep swimming, but if you start to drown, just hop back on Minecraft and build something. So more of the story, Valorant isn't a great FPS to start with. If I were to rank it, I'd probably put it somewhere low like C tier, close to D, but trust me, if you thought that was a lot, then some of these games might look like damn near rocket science.
Now moving on to one of the fundamentals of gaming, Fortnite. Fortnite has a damn multiverse of games, so I'm going to stick to the specific epic game modes. And luckily for you, this game decided to make itself easier for new players by basically cutting off the one outstanding factor that Fortnite has, building. I personally always played this game with builds, and well, that's because honestly I think that's how it should be played in my opinion. But I won't lie, till this day I know people that started years ago and still barely know how to do the basics of building. So yeah, I see why they added the no builds mode. But if you're a new player thinking into hopping into builds, well, the truth is, be prepared for sweaty nerds that haven't stopped playing since 2017. Because once Fortnite sees you winning a little bit too much and saying you're all that, they will humble you quickly. So in my opinion, if you aren't caught up with the newest peaks, or if you don't have 0 ping, or maybe even a 50-90, then I wouldn't consider playing build mode. But what I do consider new players trying is no builds. It's a simple find a gun and use as much provided cover as possible. And later on, when you pick up the basics, you can implement the mobility utility and the provided cover utility. Honestly, you can implement some game sense, but that will come in naturally. And yeah, from what I've seen playing, that's really all no build has to offer. Of course, the high rank no builds is very competitive, and you might want to work on perfecting drops or maybe even routes, but everything stems from the basics. So if I personally was going to put Fortnite on the list, I'm speaking specifically towards no builds, I'd put it in A tier. If we're adding builds, it might knock it down a couple, but I'm sticking to no builds. Now moving on to Valorant's founding father, CSGO. CSGO has a special place in my heart, even though Valorant came first. I see myself having a blast every time I hop by, but every time I play Valorant, I feel like I'm on an LSD trip that went wrong. CSGO is more of a breath of fresh air. For one, it's way simpler, no abilities that you have to worry about. The game actually has spray patterns, and to top it off, you can surf, like they really thought of it all. They also have basically the same game modes as Valorant, but what they don't have sadly is maps. Well, good maps. I see myself rotating through the same 3, and eventually it just gets boring. The gunplay is great, and the the weapons are balanced and fun. The only thing that kinda involves a decent amount of skill is the grenades. Unless your name is Kobe, I recommend putting some time into learning how to throw them. Which is crazy you have to learn how to throw, but it's better than mindlessly guessing. But honestly, other than that, it's your basic 5v5, go plant the spike or defuse it, and pray your team is better to get the win. Oh, I almost forgot, before I rank this, there's also gambling, and depending on who you are, this could be the best thing ever or another reason to go further into debt. But yeah, with that being said, I rank CSGO at S tier. It's pretty easy to get into for a new player, and I'd honestly recommend it right now. Now moving to Team Fortress 2. I know this game has been out for forever, but I never really got to give it a try. But I did for the sake of this video, so I'm basically in the perspective of an actual new player trying out this game for the first time. From first glance, you can tell this game is very outdated, and well, that's because it is. After playing TF2 for a solid 2 hours, to be truthful, this game is shit. From the start, you're given a role, and each role has a specific gun set. Obviously, I picked Scout because I like sniping, but I did try out every other agent they had to offer. I might have not put enough time into TF2 to understand why there's such a big love towards this game, but my personal opinion on this game is it's not even worth downloading. From the jump, it's hectic, the objectives is confusing, and some of the guns hit like wet napkins. And to top it off, it feels very delayed. I really tried to enjoy this game, but it's just not good. So if you're a new player, I wouldn't recommend this game, even if I was held at gunpoint. But I'm not saying don't try it because of my personal opinion, but in the perspective of a new player, I wouldn't even try to boot another FPS due to the trauma of this game. So unless you're psychotic, I don't really recommend trying this game as your first FPS or ever. And now to rank TF2, I might be a little dramatic, but I'm making a new row for this awful game, and I think it belongs in horrible. Moving on to a game I played a while ago when it released, The Finals. My first time playing this game, I kinda hated it, but then again, that's when I was switching over from console to PC. I hopped back on recently for the video, and surprisingly, I was having a blast the whole time playing. This game has a lot to offer, but I will say it's kinda more on the advanced side. Initially, you start off playing either as a light, medium, or heavy character. Each one of those have different guns and playstyles. Like the light, you're obviously faster and have more mobility, and with heavy, you're more like a tank player, a lot of health, very slow, but does a lot of damage. Once you decide what you want to play, you load into a game mode that's kinda like Capture the Flag and Hardpoint had a baby. You start off as 3 players on a team, going against 2 other teams, trying to get the money so you can deposit into a weird box to gain points. Weird system at first, but once you play a little, it makes more sense. Although loading in, I can see a new player getting lost in the map because they are quite huge, which I doubt you want that to happen because this game is very team dependent. The Finals has a standing feature that no other FPS has, or at least any I can think of. You're able to grab things like gas and smoke tanks and many other different things and use them during the game. They're placed all around the map, and depending on how good you are, these things can really change the outcome of a fight. Other than that, The Finals is just a basic shooter with good mobility and the addition of the Force. I do like the game now, and I think it's honestly great, but back when I first started, I quit for a reason. The game is just not meant for new players trying to get better at this genre. So with that being said, I rank The Finals in C tier. Now for Rainbow Six Siege. As a new player in 2026, it's one of the most unique FPS games I've ever played. Every round feels like a puzzle where gadgets, teamwork, and map knowledge matter just as much as your aim. The learning curve is definitely steep, and you'll probably lose a lot while figuring out the operators, maps, and strategies. But that's also what makes improving so satisfying. Every match teaches you something new, whether it's a better angle to hold, a smarter way to use a gadget, or how to communicate more effectively with your team. As you gain experience, you'll start recognizing common strategies and making better decisions under pressure. Even though it feels overwhelming at first, the sense of progress keeps you coming back, and every win feels earned because of the teamwork and planning that goes into it. The game has a wide variety of operators, each with unique gadgets and playstyles, giving new players plenty of ways to figure out what best suits them. Rainbow also offers a lot of different game modes, regular seasonal updates, and new content. The game is put together, it's just difficult for new players trying to learn. Is it worth starting as a new player? I'd say no, because of how much is needed to play at a decent level. Even though Ubisoft added better onboarding tutorials for new players over the years, I give or take a year or two just to be decent enough to start competitive. I'd rank Rainbow Six Siege right at D tier. Despite its age, Rainbow Six Siege is not something you can just hop right into. Now for Delta Force. If Delta Force was my first ever FPS game, I'd actually say it's a pretty good place to start. The controls are easy to pick up, and the gunplay feels satisfying without being overly complicated. And the game gives you multiple ways to play. Whether you're jumping into a large-scale battle or trying the extraction mode, it does a good job at introducing the basics of shooting, positioning, and teamwork. Would I recommend this as someone's first FPS? Honestly, yes. It's beginner-friendly enough that you won't feel completely lost while still having enough depth to keep you interested to improve. There'll be experienced players to deal with, but that's with every other game. But the overall experience in this game is much less intimidating than other competitive shooters.
The different classes and abilities add variety without making the gameplay overwhelming, so you can slowly learn how each role contributes to the team. As you play more, you naturally get better at map awareness, recoil control, and working with teammates. Delta Force relies on communication and smart positioning, so you can't just go in there with good aim and fast reflexes. To me, Delta Force is basically Call of Duty with more ability, so I think
I'd rank Delta Force at S tier. It may not be the absolute best first-person shooter ever made, but it's an excellent entry point for the genre.
Now moving on to Apex Legends. Apex Legends is a fun and polished FPS game, but I wouldn't say it's the easiest for new players.
The movement is fast, the gunfights are intense, and learning each Legend's abilities takes time. On top of that, you need to understand the map, loot system, and how to work with your squad to survive. New players will probably struggle during the first few matches, especially against experienced opponents, but the game becomes more enjoyable as you improve. Apex offers a large roster of unique legends, frequent updates, and satisfying team-based gameplay that keeps every match feeling different. If you're willing to be patient and learn from each game, Apex Legends can be incredibly rewarding, but it requires more time and practice than many other FPS games. A match of Apex Legends is fast-paced and unpredictable from start to finish. Every game begins by choosing a landing spot where your squad races to find weapons. As soon as you get your loadout, you have to immediately go find players because the only way to improve your armor is by doing damage. As the match goes on, the safe zone continues to shrink like Fortnite, forcing players into more intense fights and making positioning increasingly important. Success depends on working closely with your teammates, using your Legends abilities at the right time, and making quick decisions under pressure. Some matches are full of constant action, while others require patience and careful planning until there's a perfect opportunity to engage. Every match feels different, which is the one reason why Apex Legends remains exciting and keeps players coming back. But since this is for new players, this may all seem like much, because not only do you have to worry about the fast-paced gameplay that's very movement reliant, it's also basically a hero shooter with all the abilities the Legends have. So just to list off what would be needed to know, you need to know Apex has unique Legend abilities, fast-paced gameplay, and forced engagement. So with all that being said, I think Apex would not be a great place to start, and I think I'd put it in D tier. Now moving on to PUBG. If PUBG was my first introduction to FPS games, I'd probably enjoy how grounded everything feels. There's no wall running, special abilities, or crazy movement mechanics, just you, your aim, and your decisions. The matches build tension slowly, and one mistake can end your game, which makes every fight feel meaningful. Do I think PUBG is a good FPS to start? I'd say yes, honestly, but the game can get very boring. To be truthful, it's an easy game, the shooting is very simple, positioning is really the only thing that matters. I would play PUBG at first just for the mechanics, but I can promise you, it's not something long term. It's really outdated compared to other games, but it is something nice to play an hour or two for every month. Funny enough, I think I'd put PUBG at S tier. It may not have flashy mechanics or realistic gameplay or high stakes, but it is something really good to learn the fundamentals. Moving on to a game that I've been playing a lot recently, Overwatch 2. Overwatch is kind of like Valorant with their hero system, except they have like 10 times more. And instead of an S&D approach, their objective is more of a push bot slash hardpoint approach. I'm just gonna say it now, Overwatch is a pretty complicated game for a new player. Overwatch starts with role queue, and depending on what you like to play, there's DPS, there's supports, and there's tanks. And once you figure out what you want to play, you have to figure out who you want to play in that category. And even doing that is complicated because it depends on the map or the enemy team. You might have to counter swap or play someone that supports your team better, and that's just some of the variables that's needed to play Overwatch. You also have to watch out for ultimates for the enemy team because that can really change the outcome of a game, and sadly you can't really hop onto Overwatch and rely just on your aim. You have to understand the hero's abilities, team composition, ultimates, positioning, and when to push or fall back. It can feel overwhelming, especially when every match throws so many visual effects and abilities at you. Even though I said Overwatch is a very complicated game already, I do think it has a good thing keeping new players interested. Honestly, Overwatch has a character for everyone. We'll say you want to hold right click and do damage. Well, surprisingly, Overwatch has a character just for you. Or maybe you don't even feel like shooting at all and you just want to swing around like Spider-Man. Well, Overwatch has something for you. Or maybe you just want to be a cat with a jetpack that abducts people for fun. Well, guess what? Overwatch has something for you. Now, jokes aside, would I recommend Overwatch as someone's first FPS? I won't hold, probably not, but I will say you have to drop by it sometime if you really do like first-person shooters. Now, to put Overwatch on my tier list, I think it's a perfect B tier. It's mid-range depending on how far you take it. But if you are a new player, I can see you having a very stressful time trying to learn everything it has to offer. Now, with all this being said, this is my final standings on all the games for 2026, specifically for a new player. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed my yap session enough to subscribe and maybe even like this video. Anyways, thank you all once again, and it's been Rax. Peace.